Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Okay, now let's welcome our main speaker, Jack. Jack, alcoholic.
Good, Jack.
Jesus, I figured there was going to be about a 20-minute run tonight. God. I don't even know what the hell to do up here. Half of you people have already heard me too many times. There are a few faces in the crowd that I haven't seen before, and thank God for that. I saw somebody put their jacket on and bundle up. I thought they were leaving, and they didn't leave. It scares me. I may never get started tonight. You want to come up here and help me, Harley? No, Harley's not interested. My old man was an alcoholic. And growing up, I didn't think I'd ever drink. And I can remember not getting to do things that other kids could do because my old man was on a drunk, and we had to stay home and behave. And I could remember thinking I'm never going to have any problem with alcohol. And then I went off to college, and I was 18 years old, living in a dormitory, and I loved the game of pinochle. Loved playing pinochle. And we were in a pinochle game in the dorm on one of the lounges. One of the guys came walking down through, and he said, "I'm going to the liquor store and get a bottle. Anybody want anything?" And the three guys that were at the table said, "Yeah, bring me a half pint." And, you know, I couldn't not be part of the gang. And I said, "Yeah, bring me a half pint too." And the game of pinochle, is, as far as I was concerned, it was intense. I was always worried about making a mistake or doing something stupid. And I got that half pint, and I drank about half of that half pint. And that was the first pinochle game I ever enjoyed. I just really didn't give a damn what happened. And I blacked out that day, and I passed out, and I woke up the next day, and I have no idea what I thought, except that I had been set free. And started off on a path to drink on a regular basis. I irritated a professor, and she said that I should go out and grow up. And I got drunk and got kicked out of college, and I'm still trying to grow up. I don't think I'll ever make the grade. I went into the Navy, and I learned how to drink on a daily basis in the Navy. I learned how to get up in the morning and have a drink, shut off the pain from the night before. On my 21st birthday, I went out and celebrated, and I was driving back to the base, and I dropped my Liberty card, and I'm hunting for my Liberty card, and when I come up from hunting for my Liberty card, there's a car coming at me, and I pulled over, straightened the car out, and the car happened to be the Florida Highway Patrol. And they almost ran over my friend that was following me, beeping his horn, trying to wake me up from being in the wrong side of the road. And the Highway Patrol pulled me over, and my friend talked him out of taking me off to jail. He drove me onto the base. That was the beginning of many things, of people saving me, things happening so that I didn't get any problems. When I came out here after I got out of the Navy, I was out here for 2 days. It was in February. I'm from Minnesota, and I can remember walking around out here in a t-shirt like I was walking around today, and the sun was shining, and it's February. Back in Minnesota, it's snowing, and it's 40 below. And I looked around and I said, I'm coming back. And I drove my folks back to Minnesota. I got into the little town of DeGraff, which is 250 people in the middle of Minnesota. And I got drunk, blew up the engine in my car, and it took me a year and a half to get the money together and a car together at the same time so that I could get back out here. And when I came back out here in 1955, I got a job at Douglas, and then my drinking took off. And I can remember the last drink that I had. It was right down the street here, the Alibi Room. That actually wasn't, it was the first time I went to jail. It was on a birthday, September 14th, and I had a drink with the boys from work, and I woke up in the back end of a police car, and I said to the cop that's sitting up in the front seat, I said, what's happening? And he looked at me, and he said, yeah, uh-huh. And I said, no, what happened? And he said, you're serious? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, you see your car sitting up there in front of the telephone pole? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, you hit the telephone pole. And we got a report that there was an accident and somebody hit a telephone pole. And we drove by your car 3 times. And you're sitting there in the front seat with the lights on, and we figured you were waiting for somebody. And he said, finally, we stopped to ask you if you'd seen an accident. And he says, I walked up to you and I touched you on the shoulder and you fell forward on the steering column. And he said, so we put the cuffs on you and put you in the back seat. And I said, okay. It cost me about $1,500 with the lawyer and all that silly jazz. And they gave me a no driving except to and from work for 90 days. And 92 days later, I'm driving down the Santa Ana Freeway, and I come to. And I look around, and I'm wondering where I'm going. and I looked down, and I'm in an Austin Healey that had been clocked at Bonneville at 137 point something miles per hour. It was not a stock Austin Healey. And the speedometer was pegged. And I didn't know where I was going or why I was in such a hurry to get there. So I pulled over and slowed down, and I see this ambulance following behind me. And so I figured I'd get out of its way so he could get on up to where he was going. And I waited till he got up close to me, and then I pulled over and stopped, and I can still see the highway patrol car on all four wheels locked sliding on past me. And do you know how pissed he was? And he reached in and he got a hold of me by the neck because I'm too drunk to get out. And he got a hold of me by the neck and he pulled me out in the middle of the freeway. And they eventually got me off to the side, and I passed all the tests. I touched my nose and walked the line and did all that jazz. And there, cops are standing around and, well, we know he's drunk, but he's passing the test. And then he threw 3 pennies down on the ground, and he said, stand on one foot and bend over and pick it up. When I went in front of the judge, I had all the hide peeled off the side of my face. There wasn't any real discussion there. And the judge is like this here. He's looking over the stuff. And he said, do you have anything to say for yourself? And I couldn't think of anything to say, and so I said, no, Your Honor. And he said, 180 days, next. I could think of a lot of things to say, but I was off to jail. And I went to Saugus, out there at the Honor Ranch. And I'm out there, and I wrote a letter to my dad, and I said, come get your bouncing baby boil out of jail. My old man, 2 years before this, had been given the gift of sobriety. I put him in the institution where he met a man, and the man was a multimillionaire. And that impressed my old man. Now, he wasn't interested in getting sober, but he was interested in being impressed by this guy. And this guy convinced him that he was an alcoholic and hooked him into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And my dad stayed sober from then till he died. And I wrote this letter to my dad, come get me out of jail. And my dad got the letter at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he called his sponsor down in Minneapolis, and his sponsor called a councilman out here in Los Angeles. The councilman called the judge, and the judge called my dad at 9 o'clock in the morning. 1 hour turnaround. And they decided to leave me in jail. So, I spent 111 days in the county. And while I was there, my dad and mom came out to visit me. And Dad said, they're looking over your case for modification of sentence. You go to church and go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And well, I had crossed church out years before. And so I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. A fellow by the name of Herb. He's on the program. He's got 47, maybe 48 years. He's got 2.5 years more than I got. And he stood up there and he told me his story. And his story was mine. And he talked about white lightning, and I knew all about white lightning. And he talked about the fear, and when you take a couple of shots of whatever. He talked about white lightning, and he said, does anybody know anything about white lightning? He said, you go like this here. That stuff would gag a maggot. But it does the job. And the thing is that I knew what he was talking about. I knew about the fear, and I knew about not caring. And that's why I drank. And I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I got sober. I wasn't interested in getting sober. But I had a judge on my case, and I was afraid of going back to jail. I got out of jail, and I met my buddies on Ocean Park Boulevard. They were going to work, and I screamed at them, and they pulled over and stopped. "You're out of jail. Let's go over to the alibi room and say hi to Fred and Jen and Bob and Mary." And so we're over here about 8 hours after I'm out of jail. And I wasn't going to drink. 2 hours later, I'm drunk. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday morning, on my friend's couch on Ocean Park Boulevard, I'm watching a Coke bottle dance on the kitchen table. And I remembered some of the things that I'd done the night before, and I knew I was going back to jail. I just knew I was going back to jail. And I had wrangled a date with a gal that night, and I have no idea how I did that. And I went over to her place, and she said, "Grab a beer out of the icebox and crack one for me too." That's back when they had church keys. None of this pop-top crap. And so I cracked a beer, and I'm about halfway through this can of beer. And I'm thinking that if I'm going to do anything with this lady, I got to drink the beer. And if I drink the beer, I may not do anything with the lady, but I may get my opportunity to go back to jail. And I said, "Honey, I'm sorry, I got to go." And I set the can of beer down. And she looked at me as if I just grew no head. And she said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I'll see you later, I got to go." To this day, I've never seen that woman again. But that was the last beer I ever had. And that was somewhere in the neighborhood of the 22nd of April in 1957, which is 45 years ago. Now, that's when my trouble started. And there's people that are laughing out there. They know just exactly what I'm talking about. Because I didn't know how to live. And I'm not talking about how to do things. I can follow you. I can see what you do, and I know how to do things. But I don't know how to communicate. I don't know what to do. You know, I used to be pretty. It's all gone now, but I would walk up to a woman and I'd say hi. And then pretty soon she'd leave because I didn't know what to say after that. I had no idea. I did not know how to communicate. I was pissed most of the time. I was angry. I didn't stop hitting people. We're not talking about how good I am. We're talking about how crazy I am. I'm pretty near 19 years sober on a program of Alcoholics Anonymous before I stopped hitting people. You know how crazy that is? When you don't know how to communicate and you have to get violent in order to survive. And we're not talking about drunk. I'm talking about sober on the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm talking about how lonely it is to walk into a room like this here and sit down and not be able to communicate with somebody else. And sit there and look at people and want to be able to figure out how do they do what they're doing. I see this gal come in here. She can communicate with anybody. She communicates all day long, and I sit there and look at her and I don't know what to do. And she walks up and hugs me. And you know how that feels? Do you know how it feels when you're so cold and alone? I'm not talking about shivering. I'm talking about so cold and alone down inside yourself, and you don't know what to do or how to do it. And you come into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, The only thing that allowed me to learn how to do anything was when I was loaded. And I came on the program, and according to whatever it is, boy, I got happy, joyous, and free, and a wonderful life, and everything is wonderful. My problems really started when I came on the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm not talking about anything but the fear that I lived with on the inside. I had a business down here in Venice, and I had that business for 28 years. And I had this business, and I have people coming into me, and I have a carburetor that I'm working on this one day, and I'm telling you things that happened to me. And I'm sitting there working on the carburetor. I'm not a bad mechanic. I'm not the best mechanic in the world, but I'm a pretty good mechanic. And I'm sitting there putting this carburetor together, and a friend of mine is sitting on a box behind me. And we're having a conversation. And she's talking away, and then this customer comes in. And the customer is the type of person that intimidates me. And it's a good customer, spends good money, does good things. The only thing is that he wants to know what I did. And he wants to know why I did it. And I'm thinking he's questioning my integrity. And all he wants to do is wants to know what's happening. What's going on? You know, I'm tired of explaining things to him, and I'm thinking that he doesn't trust me. And he comes in and he wants me to work on his car, and I said, you know, there's a place up on Lincoln Boulevard, and they do real good work. Why don't you bring it up there? And he said, no, I didn't. And I said, wait a minute. Take your car up on Lincoln Boulevard and pick any one of those damn places up there, but get it out of here. And he doesn't know what's going on. And he finally gets tired of me arguing with him or telling him to get the hell out. And he leaves. And she said, you just ran him off. And I said, yeah, I'm tired of messing with him. And he said, he really wanted you to work on his car. And I said, yeah, but he questioned me. And do you know what it feels like when you're questioned? And you feel like they don't trust you? And I lived that way. And I'm not talking about drunk. I'm talking about sober on the program of Alcoholics Anonymous for a long time. And I'm talking about walking around and hitting people to defend myself because they questioned me. And I'm talking about I had to drink to get rid of that, and I came on the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I worked these steps, and I worked the steps to the best of my ability, and I didn't know how to live. And I go home one night, and I walk into my house, and my wife says to me, I have a wife and a house and a family, cars, clothes, all that stuff. And my wife says to me, I'm going to move out because you don't love me anymore. And Jerry does. And I didn't know what was going on. And I'm talking about many years sober. When I had that conversation with my wife, I was almost 15 years sober on the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'd been to many, many, many thousands of meetings. And I had commitments 10, 12, 15 days a month. And I was working the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous to the best of my ability. And one of the things was I didn't know how to communicate with another human being. Didn't know how to do that. I worked the steps to the best of my ability. And the thing is that if I could figure out a way to make you happy, I felt like I'd be all right. You understand that? If I can just figure out a way to make you happy, then I'll be acceptable and everything be all right. And I was working my butt off to make everybody happy. And I had this one woman after I left my wife, and I'm living in a garage 3 blocks from here. I lived in that garage for a year. And while I was in that garage, this woman asked me some questions that were really, really funny. And I couldn't answer them. She said, "Jack, what's important to you?" And I said, "I don't know." She said, "Jack, what could you put in your life? And if you put that in your life, you'd have a good life." "I don't know." She said, "That's pretty sad answers. You don't know what could make you happy? And you don't know what you would like to put in your life, and you'd have a good life if you put that in your life? You don't know anything about you, do you?" And she said, "You worked steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and you don't know your own life?" And it was true. And I'm talking about, I'm working my butt off to stay sober, and I'm very, very angry. Sober on the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Doing all of the things that I'm supposed to do to be sober. And then I was reintroduced to the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know what? They haven't changed. They're identical. They're the same steps that they put together. It was in 1938 when they wrote this book. Same steps. The first 164 pages have not been changed. A couple of words. 2 words, right? Hasn't been changed. And yet, when I was living in that garage, I was reintroduced to the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous just exactly like they are today. And my whole life has been changed. Now, I'm not talking about dollars. I'm not talking about dollars and cents. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about the car. I'm not talking about the house. I'm talking about the relationship that I have with me. The only human being in this world that really means anything to me, that's me. And I did not know how to live with this man. And so consequently, I was walking around and I was irritated. I was going to say pissed. I was irritated all the time. Now, anybody that knows me, I'm a smart ass. I get a kick out of life. It's the only thing that counts. Excitement of life. It is the only thing that counts. If you cannot get excited about your life, shame on you. You understand that statement? Shame on you. Now, we come into these meetings, and sometimes we have to go to 20 meetings before we can come out feeling good. Sometimes it's only 5. Sometimes it's 3. Sometimes it's 7. But to be able to walk out and walk down the street feeling good on the inside, do you know the difference? Do you know what it's like to walk down the street, and then you know what it's like to walk down the street feeling good on the inside? That warm feeling? We're not talking about the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous will give you that feeling on a regular basis or all the time. But I looked at the steps and admitted I was powerless over alcohol, and my life had become unmanageable. Yep, I'm a drunk, powerless over alcohol. Do you know that I was many years on the program of Alcoholics Anonymous before I noticed what it said in the second half of that step? That my life had become unmanageable? No, I'll put it together. Everything will be all right. You understand that statement? I'll manage. I managed myself right into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Right on. Okay, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Yep, when I was drinking I was crazy. I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and I was crazier than when I was drinking. I had an excuse when I was drinking. Do you know how mad I get? Do you know what it's like to walk around with a rage just sitting down inside? And when somebody says boo to you, you explode? Do you know that it took many years for me to stop hitting people? And I didn't hit people for any other reason except that I was afraid they didn't understand me. I was afraid of them. You know, I could remember the last time that I really went to hit somebody. You know, I'm working down at the shop, and I'd quit smoking that day. Wasn't a good thing to do. And I'm out there working on something, and this guy touches me on the shoulder. He touches me on the shoulder. And I grabbed him and pulled him around and slapped him up against the wall, and then I realized how big he was. And I tore his shirt and his jacket, and he's looking down at me as if to say, do you have a problem? And I said, just a minute. I'll be right back. And I went in and lit a cigarette and grabbed a sip of coffee, and I said, how much for the shirt and jacket? I gave him $75. We're talking about somebody that was so afraid that he couldn't communicate. And the program of Alcoholics Anonymous begins to teach you how to communicate. It says, I had a problem with God. I'm many years on the program, made a decision to turn our wills and life over to care to God as we understand. I can remember 19 years old, in college, and I'm in the Catholic church in the back pew, and I'm sitting back there, and I'm looking around, and I said, I'm out of here. I'll see y'all later. Because I couldn't do the things they were talking about. I'm not talking about even stealing, because today I can't even steal. I still can't steal. It really pisses me off. I had a auto repair shop for 27 and a half years, and I couldn't steal. You know how ridiculous that is? Maybe just a little bit. I was afraid of God, and I didn't know what to do with it. And so I jumped right on over that. And then we did the 4 and 5, and it says we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. I was ready to have him remove these defects of character. I didn't know what they were, but I was ready. And then it humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. And I thought that was just a continuation of the 6 shortcomings. And then some fool said to me, there's a difference there, boy. And I said, what are you talking about? Well, it's the defects of character. That's stuff that you do that you shouldn't do. The shortcomings, stuff that you don't do that you should do. And I just began to get a different look at the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Just a small different look. The shortcomings, the things that I should do the things that I should put in my life, what are they? And I'm back down to that question, what do you want in your life? I don't know. What would you like to do? I don't know. And to come on the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and stop drinking and then not know how to live. You come on the program, you have to learn how to live. You have to learn how to live with the only human being in this world that means anything to you, and that's you. Not learn how to live so these people, if you walk in this place, 99 chances out of 100, you can't get back to that coffee urn before you've had at least 5 or 6 people say hi. If you've been in here more than 3 times. Even if they don't like you, they'll say hi to you. How do you learn how to be a friend to yourself? And I'm not talking about cars and clothes. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm not talking about diamond rings or wristwatches. I'm talking about being able to go home at night and be comfortable and be able to go to sleep and not feel bad because you couldn't do anything. Not feel bad because you're lonely. Alcoholism is loneliness. Do you know that 2 shots of Jack Daniels, and I know it just as sure today as I did 40 years ago, 2 shots of Jack Daniels, and I don't care. I don't give a damn what you think. I don't give a damn what you do. I'm comfortable. And the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is to give you the comfort that you've been missing. And you work the steps, and you make everybody else happy. And what about that person, the only one that really means anything to you? And I'm talking about, they talk about the selfish program. And we're not talking about taking food away from somebody or any of that jazz. We're talking about giving the comfort that you need to exist in this world and feel good about yourself. And not things. Because things don't mean anything. They really don't mean anything. I go like this here, and it pisses people off. Good baby. Good baby. I love you. Good baby. Who the hell do you think you are? You know what? I didn't know who I was. Do you know what it's like to feel less than? God, I felt less than for so many years. I can walk in here today and everybody say hi to me, and then some guy standing back in the corner look at me like this, you know. Harley gets pissed off one day. I don't know what I did wrong to him every once in a while. He gets pissed off and he looks at me, and I feel bad. Harley and I have been butting heads for years. We should be acceptable to each other. Do you know it's hard to live in this world when you have a head like mine? My head says, what'd you do that for? Goddamn, ain't you ever going to learn? She's never going to speak to you again. What's he pissed off about now? This just goes on and on and on. Did you ever hear those voices? Those little words that are going on in there? We're not talking about drinking. We're not talking about abusing. We're talking about the little person that's down inside of you that needs to be loved. And you won't give them love. You come into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, that's what you have to learn how to do. You have to learn how to love yourself. And when you learn how to love yourself, then you have to learn how to accept other people. And I love the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. It has given me a life that I didn't even know existed. And we're not talking about things again. We're talking about the warmth of another human being. And I'm not talking about, do you know, I lived with women that I would be in bed with them and know they love me, and I'd be afraid to reach out and touch them because I was afraid of being rejected. In a bed with somebody that loves me. You know how that fear is? Because you're afraid you're going to be turned off one more time. And that's what the program of Alcoholics Anonymous gives you. It gives you the freedom to be the human being that you are. And you don't have to add anything to it. You don't have to make it look better. Just to be who you are and be accepted. And that's what the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is about. And I am so grateful. Thank God for it. Thank you.
All right.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.